Get ready to take a flamethrower to the official narrative and learn what the elites don't want you to know. You're listening to The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here. It's episode 2656 of The Tom Woods Show. We got Scott Horton on here for obvious reasons. He's coming to us from PorcFest, so I appreciate Scott's good-naturedness, being willing to come on under unusual circumstances, but the whole circumstance is unusual with what's going on in the Middle East. And I just thought, if we don't hear from Scott Horton, you know, we are adrift. If you don't know who Scott Horton is, I almost don't know what to tell you at this point, but he is director of the Libertarian Institute. He's the author most recently of Provoked, which was very deliberately titled that way, about the war in Ukraine. His work on the war on terror is just without peer, and I want to talk to him about what's going on right now. So, Scott, you ready to dig in?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Tom.
All right. So, there's a bunch of things that need to be discussed here, but anybody who's following the news at all knows that conflict broke out between Israel and Iran. Israel just started hitting targets in Iran, and then Iran seems to be retaliating. So in the meantime, we got Donald Trump saying he'll define for us what America First means. And America First means Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon. What's going on here, Scott, is just wild. He's got major right-wing supporters who are saying we're bailing over this. And it's just like, I just shrug it off. Oh, well, I guess you're just a kook. So that means Marjorie Taylor Greene, Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec, Tucker Carlson, a bunch that just saying we're just not doing this, and it doesn't seem to be phasing them. Anyway, just give me your initial thought about all this.
Well, it's a disaster, as you know, and most of your audience knows, and as I've been explaining, I guess, to no real end for the last 25 years, or 20 years, 22, that Iran is not pursuing nuclear weapons. Iran has had, since 2005, since the end of 05, 06, they've had a latent nuclear deterrent. In other words, they've proven that they know how to enrich uranium. And essentially the idea is, don't make me go ahead and follow through and make a nuke by attacking me. And then, so our deal was, if you don't make one, then we won't attack you. And that was essentially the standoff, and it was a perfectly reasonable basis for a deal. And they, hawks call it a loophole, but it's true that in the Non-Proliferation Treaty, they have the unalienable right to enrich uranium for peaceful purposes. And they've forsworn breaking out and developing a nuclear weapon. Now, they could withdraw from the treaty, or they could obviously break the treaty and secretly make a nuke, but they have not done that. In all of these years, they used to lie all day long back, especially in the W. Bush years, that there was a secret parallel nuclear program somewhere that was making bombs. That was completely disproven. The only nuclear program they have is the same one we know about. It's the same one that Obama got us in the 2015 deal. And I hate sticking up for Obama in any way. It's not about that. And I know people just despise him and therefore anything he ever did or said or what. But the thing is, Netanyahu was threatening war then. And Obama decided that the best way to take war off the table would be to get essentially really the entire JCPOA of 2015. All it ultimately did, Tom, was add additional protocols and additional agreements to the safeguards agreement that they already had, which was a big deal in that it rolled back their program and it expanded inspections. And they made it clear that what they did, they have this thing called a breakout capability. It's a term. The breakout capability is how long it would take a country to have enough fissile material for one nuclear bomb. And that doesn't include the time that it would take to have the experts machine all the parts just right and get all the explosives just right and get everything set to make a nuke, especially a deliverable nuclear weapon. That's a whole other set of questions. But the breakout time, they've defined it all the way down to just how long it would take to have enough weapons grade uranium to have one bomb. And they, under the 2015 deal, they had reduced that time, increased that time to 1 year. And under the deal, Iran would not be allowed to keep any enriched uranium. They would ship it all out to France, and then France would turn it into fuel rods and then ship it back for use in their reactors. and then any waste would be taken by the Russians. And they didn't ever have the facility to reprocess plutonium waste in order to make weapons fuel out of it anyway. And then the Russians would come and take that. So that they never had a plutonium route to the bomb, and even a potential plutonium route to the bomb was completely foreclosed by the deal. And then their uranium route to the bomb was at least forestalled for, at the absolute minimum, 1 year. It's a perfectly reasonable deal. And they again forswore ever making nuclear weapons at all in the deal. And Donald Trump tore that agreement up in 2015 at Netanyahu's behest. So in protest of that, it's actually within the deal, Tom, that Iran is allowed to stop abiding by a bunch of the restrictions in it if America stops abiding by our side of it. In other words, they can violate some of the terms of the treaty under some of the terms of the treaty, right? And it's not them violating the treaty to stop abiding by some of its restrictions, because it's made that way to try to get us back into it if we ever had a president who would lead. And so what happened was they started enriching greater quantities up to 60% uranium, which is all simply a bargaining chip. And they have no use for 60% enriched uranium. That was all meant essentially to negotiate a way to try to get America back into the deal, which they're still in with the rest of the Security Council. And so then Donald Trump, by the way, Trump loses and Joe Biden comes in. And remember the whole theory that Donald Trump was some completely rogue agent who had no business being the president of the United States. Anything he did was completely crazy and wrong. Well, you might have thought that Joe Biden would have got right back in Barack Obama's deal, but he didn't do that. He kept Donald Trump's maximum pressure sanctions campaign all through his presidency, did absolutely nothing whatsoever to resolve this issue for 4 years straight, and then got us in a situation where now Netanyahu's man, Donald Trump, is back. Not that Biden wasn't, but Netanyahu's even closer best friend, Donald Trump, is in there and willing to let him go this far, even though in the official threat assessment of February by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and apparently, according to a brand new story out today, and by the way, no, we already know this on the record, her testimony before Congress in March, but then also apparently there was a brand new report out, I know it's CNN, but they claim that there was an intelligence assessment that came in just last week that told Trump, again, that Iran is, one, not pursuing nuclear weapons. They had not made the political decision to begin to attempt to make a bomb, and that if they did, it would take them 3 years to have a deliverable nuclear weapon. And this is something that is, it gets down in the details, but I think it's worth mentioning or explaining. I think people can understand it. The bomb they dropped on Hiroshima was a simple gun-type nuke. They didn't even test it. The Trinity test was a test of the Nagasaki plutonium implosion bomb. The gun-type nuke they didn't even test. Is basically a giant shotgun inside a bomb that shoots one uranium pit into another and causes a supercritical mass and fission reaction. That's what they nuked Hiroshima with. But it's virtually impossible. It's not completely impossible, but it's almost unheard of that a country would make a implosion bomb with uranium. You really need plutonium for that for various reasons that I don't really understand. But the point being that you can't make a deliverable, miniaturized nuclear weapon unless it's an implosion bomb. The Nagasaki bomb scaled down in size, but maybe up in power. But and so Iran has no capability to do that whatsoever, to have a route to the plutonium bomb. So in other words, even if they got a simple gun-type nuke, how the hell are they going to deliver it to Israel? On the back of a flatbed truck, right? They're going to put it in an airliner, a DC-10 or something that left over from the 70s and just fly it over there. They have no ability to deliver it whatsoever, even if they had one. And so then, and you'll notice this happened to me in an interview the other day I did with this right-winger on News Nation, and you'll hear it in everything that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu say about this now. Iran can't have a nuke. They can't have a nuke. Just implying and begging the question ridiculously that they were making one and that they were about to have one and that they would have had one if we hadn't done this. Instead, they're just lying. I mean, Donald Trump is conflating the Ayatollah's unwillingness to completely abandon enrichment, to let America take every last one of its centrifuges out of the country, and is conflating that with them having a bomb. This is what George W. Bush called shorthanding it. It's a lie. It's a damned lie. And Donald Trump knows it's a lie. And his own intelligence agencies told him last week they are not making news. And then worse, this is as we're recording this Tuesday morning, they were supposed to meet 2 days ago on Sunday. And apparently, here are our choices. We don't know for sure. Our choices are either one, Donald Trump, in the most dastardly, treacherous, just completely, most gratuitous act of anti-diplomacy and with consequences for decades to come for sure, was lying and pretending that he was still negotiating with the Iranians, all the while he was setting them up for the Israelis to go ahead and get them in decapitation strikes and reassuring them that they didn't need to go to alternative locations and whatever to protect themselves. Don't worry, the attack's not coming. We're still negotiating with Donald Trump. And then sneak attacked them in a Tojo-style fashion. Or the other alternative is that Donald Trump was negotiating. This is what Tucker Carlson says. He believes he was told that Trump really was negotiating in good faith, and he really had told Netanyahu to wait. And then Netanyahu went ahead and did this anyway, and is now dragging Donald Trump by the hair into the thing. And then Donald Trump is handling that by saying, oh yeah, I meant to do that. This was my plan all along. So you take your choice. I think the first is the most likely, that they're telling the truth now when they say that they had agreed to do this and that they were lying and pretending to negotiate. If it's the other way, then fine. Either way is a total disaster. And by the way, so now let me talk about the war for a minute. The Israelis, better than I realized, boy, was I busy writing my book last October, getting the final touches on that thing. I knew that Israel had done this giant air campaign. Well, they had been really successful against Iran's Russian S-300 anti-aircraft surface-to-air missiles and had just destroyed most of them. And then in their initial wave of the attack here, they took out virtually everything that's left. I saw footage this morning, Tom, assuming it was legit, that was formations of Israeli fighter bombers flying low over Tehran in like V formations, like birds. And it was like, I'm just estimating, I didn't count carefully or anything, but it was like 5 V formations of fighter bombers flying at, I don't know, 5,000 feet, maybe 10,000 feet or something over Tehran. And with absolute air dominance over the country now. They've hit their various nuclear sites. I don't know the degree to which they've been able to destroy Fordo or Natanz or Isfahan and all the different targets that they've hit, and how far all that goes. I'm not sure like what all the latest and best battle assessments are of the damage done. They have taken out, major leadership of the Quds Force. They took out media and they started taking out economic targets, including oil refineries and all this. And Netanyahu is openly saying that he would very much like to see a regime change here. There's a news story that says he wanted to kill the Ayatollah and that Trump stopped him from killing the Ayatollah. I have no idea if that's true or not. But they're even like tweeting out pictures of Israelis palling around with the monarchists, the son of the Shah Reza Pahlavi or his grandson or whatever, like gloating that that's essentially their intention here is to restore the Pahlavi monarchy to Persia of all things. And then last thing before I finally shut up is that I know people who know people. And so whatever, it's just hearsay and I hope it's wrong. It's not like I'm trumpeting like, oh, here, I'm making a big claim about predicting the future or whatever like that. I certainly have these sources that are telling me this, that I believe have very good reason to know whether this is true or not. And I sincerely hope that they're wrong, that Trump is planning on getting into the war himself and launching a major air campaign with, the heavy earth penetrator, bunker buster bombs to take out the deeply buried facilities at Fordo and Natanz. And who knows what? He ordered last night the evacuation of the capital city. He said, I gave you your chance. You didn't take the chance. He said, everyone needs to leave Tehran, which is a threat, which, their critical nuclear infrastructure is not in the city. I mean, there is obviously military infrastructure inside the city. So he's implying there, he's going to just send in B-52s and carpet bomb the place entirely? Or, I mean, he wouldn't use a nuke. I don't think he's that crazy, but Or it could be not. It could be that, in fact, he's really just referring to the fact that he's given this green light to the Israelis to continue to bomb targets, government targets inside Tehran. And he's just telling civilians, get out of the way, we're bombing your city, without necessarily saying we're going to bomb the whole thing to rubble.
Hey, gang, I had a great Father's Day because I spent the day with my wonderful family, but also because one of my daughters made me a delicious steak dinner, as I told you last week was going to happen. Well, Father's Day season or any time of year is a great time to treat dad or that special someone, even yourself, dear listener, to the unique gift of Omaha Steaks. And stay tuned because I've got a discount for you. Our family's been enjoying Omaha Steaks since at least 2010. We started ordering it for the convenience and also because it was delicious. We had delicious steaks on hand at all times. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers. And by the way, sometimes even a steak lover needs some variety. And Omaha Steaks delivers there too. They also carry mouth-watering burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, dessert, and easy-to-prepare comfort food. So this Father's Day, indeed Father's Day season, give Dad the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for guaranteed perfect gifts that deliver legendary quality. And for an extra $35 off, you use promo code WOODS at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code WOODS at checkout. See site for details. Yeah, true. But you know, when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and a civilian city of 10 million people gets told, oh, by the way, everybody needs to leave because the psychotic guy in charge of a foreign government might decide to just go nuts. And by the way, I don't even know which psychotic guy I mean at this point.
Right.
Scott, that's savagery. I mean, that's savagery. You can't, if the tables were turned and they said, look, everybody's got to get out of New York, we would say, what? This is insane.
We nuke
by the
them
way,
first.
Let me jump in with a couple things. So you mentioned Tulsi. So that was brought up. Now, I know you've been on the road getting to Pork Fest, so maybe you know all this, maybe you don't. But Trump was confronted with that the other day. Look, Tulsi said there's no such program, and his response was literally, I don't care what she said. I think they were close. Right. So the only point in having a Tulsi Gabbard in that position is to not just repeat the neocon line. If you're going to overrule her...
Listen, in 2007, the CIA and the National Intelligence Council came out and said Iran's not making nukes. They've abandoned even the research into it. And then Bush didn't bomb them. And he wrote in his memoir, I wanted to bomb them. And I told His Royal Highness, His Majesty, King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, geez, Your Highness, Your Royal Worshipfulness, I love you so much. And I would have loved to bomb Iran for you. But it was unfortunately impossible for me to do that after the CIA came out and said they weren't making nuclear weapons. How was I supposed to bomb them when my own intelligence agency said they weren't making nukes? That was George W. Bush, Tom. And Donald Trump's like, yeah, whatever. He just doesn't even care at all. It's a shrug to him.
Well, I had somebody, I don't want to say the name, but I had somebody saying in my social media feed, well, why does everybody in the U.S., all libertarians, why are you all placing so much confidence? Now, let me give you my initial response to this first. Okay. Why are you placing so much confidence in American intelligence sources? They're not infallible. And maybe they're wrong about the Iranian nuclear program. And part of my answer is, but they have a vested interest in wanting to tell the president what he obviously wants to hear. So when they don't tell him that in 2007 and today, it carries extra weight. If they had said, yep, they absolutely do have that, I'd be skeptical because I know that's what the White House wants. The White House did not want this kind of intelligence assessment, but that's the one they gave them. And that's why it has more credibility. And then secondly, we add that Netanyahu has been calling for wild regime change wars for years and years, not one of whose saccharine promises ever really came to pass. So I think we're entitled to some skepticism there.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, they did miss Iraq's secret nuclear weapons program in the 1980s. Everybody always gives Israel credit for bombing the Osirak reactor in 1981. But Ronald Reagan was right about that. It was a huge mistake. It was actually not even operational yet, but it was declared and safeguarded by the IAEA. And by bombing it, all the Israelis did was drive it underground, and they didn't know about it either. It was only in the aftermath of Iraq War I, when they occupied the southern part of Iraq, that they found the program. And it was not that advanced. He was still years away from a nuke, but it was going on under the CIA's nose. And that was later invoked by Dick Cheney when they wouldn't quite lie well enough to get us all the way into war. And I mean, they did torture lies out of people and everything. They're guilty as hell. And their NIE of 2002 was terrible. But of course, they had to go to the Pentagon and the neoconservatives and the Israelis and Ahmed Chalabi to come up with more lies to get us into that war, because it wasn't enough at the time. But they essentially said, yeah, well, the CIA made this mistake before. And so if the CIA says they can't find a nuclear weapons program in Iraq now, well, that's probably the same as them having one, because the CIA didn't know about it before. But in the case of Iran, again, this has been the claim for 25 years straight. And we know from really great reporting from the likes of Seymour Hersh and many others that the CIA and the military have had extensive operations inside Iran for years, including radiation detectors everywhere and weight sensors for the roads and all kinds of things. There's really great stuff, especially by Hersh, about the Defense Department's top secret, JSOC's top secret, spying inside Iran and attempts to uncover any covert nuclear activity. And there's just nothing to it. We know what they've got. It's been open and declared this whole time. The IAEA has it safeguarded. There's cameras and locks and seals on everything. And they, and the only discrepancies are like, oh, we found, 2 radioactive atoms of some isotope somewhere. Explain it. And then they always explain it away. It always either came with the equipment that they got from Pakistan in the first place, or it's from some ancient research project that had nothing to do with weapons or whatever. And so, whenever they talk about, oh, the IAEA says they're in violation, yeah, you got to zoom in. It's always some tiny little technical violation that's no real indication of weaponization whatsoever. So in other words, Tom, there's no reason at all. There is no reason, even if you accepted the premise that Israel has the right to start wars to prevent their enemies from obtaining nuclear weapons. There's no reason the world has had to start right now. There's nothing different about right now than there was 6 months ago or 6 years ago. Well, they have more uranium that they could enrich to a higher weapons grade, but still, there's not a significant change in Iran's posture. Apparently just last week, the intelligence agencies reaffirmed that to Trump, that nothing has changed in Iran. The only question was whether they were willing to negotiate away their ability to enrich uranium. And that was obviously the Ayatollah's red line, that they'll give away a lot, but they're not going to give away the very, very last basis of their latent deterrent. But so now that brings up the question of what happens now, because their latent deterrent was always, if you attack us, then we'll make a nuke. So now, does that mean we got to keep going all the way to regime change? Because if we just stop the air campaign now at some point and the Ayatollah and his regime survive, well, they're going to take whatever nuclear scientists they can get and they're going to try to enrich up to weapons grade now. They're going to try to make a bomb now, or at least that's obviously the potential that the fatwa would be canceled and that now they're going to make nuclear weapons. And of course, there's only one solution to that. And that means, either just completely to, maintain air dominance over their country and just routinely bomb them, from now on, like the 1990s over Iraq, or it means what? Parachute the 82nd Airborne and Paul Bremer in there to the viceroy to build a new government for them. America's going to enforce the reinstatement of the Shah Reza Pahlavi's family, or maybe we'll put the Mujahideen-e-Khalq communist terrorist cult in there. And they'll finally let those people have their children back that they kidnapped. I don't know, man. Hearing all the celebratory reactions from the war party. I did this guy show Leland something, who's like a has-been from Fox News on News Nation. And when he introduced me, his introduction was like 5 minutes of the war's already won. Everything is perfect. There are no negative consequences to come from this. And whatever they might be, if they ever do come, surely pale in comparison to the threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon that we are all supposed to just take for granted was going to detonate over Kansas City the day after tomorrow if we hadn't have done this, and all this kind of stuff. And it reminds me a lot of Mission Accomplished in March 2003, But this is a much more powerful regime than Saddam Hussein's ever was, than Gaddafi's or Assad's ever were. And so it's a big country with a lot of people, and how they might respond to this. I mean, as those of us who've warned against this war for a long time have said, I don't know so much about it in the United States. There are rumors of this in the United States, but it seems to me like it's almost, and I don't actually have any facts here, but it just makes sense to me that the Quds Force, the IRGC, and Hezbollah types would have sleeper cells throughout Europe prepared to commit any number of terrorist attacks in asymmetric warfare against the West for participating in this. And that could include in the United States as well. And you see what just one or two armed guys with rifles or firebombs or whatever can do if they're armed and prepared. Now, luckily, unlike in the propaganda, Al-Qaeda and Iran are enemies. So we're doing this on behalf of Al-Qaeda now. It's, bin Laden's sons and whoever's still alive running what's left of the bin Laden and Al-Qaeda type networks. The potential that we're going to open up Persia for them for, another gigantic Iraq-style jihadi civil war is like a dream come true beyond any reason to them. But the good news there, that means that, no, the IRGC or the Quds Force, Iran is not about to activate bin Ladenites against us, because that's not the command and control there. They're on the opposite sides of this thing. It's America that supports Al-Qaeda, not Iran.
It's hard to keep all this straight or even believe the levels of stupidity. But stupidity is too charitable. It's maliciousness, and I mean the bloodlust that I see on social media about just casually. For example, Congressman Randy Fine, one of the worst human beings on earth from Florida, said, "Thank you, Mr. President, bombs away." Now, see, even in an absolutely righteous cause, I can't ever imagine talking that way because I'm a human being. And I know that when I say bombs away, inevitably, some kid's going to get killed. Some kid's going to lose his mother and father. Some kid's house is going to be destroyed. I could never cheer that way. I would be extremely regretful that it had come to that.
Well, that
would be the best I could do.
I have to admit to you, Tom, that when I was 15, I was a total psychopath, dude. And I loved Iraq War I. And I wasn't a Republican. I didn't care. I wasn't a Bush guy, but I'm a boy. And man, I like fighter jets and bombers and tanks and explosions and excitement. Right. And if the president of the United States says that this is okay, this is not criminal behavior, but George Bush is saying this is what we're doing for the good of the red, white, and blue and all that. It's the ultimate permission slip. It's the gigantic exception in thou shalt not kill, the mandate of the creator of the universe. You can too if you wear green or brown and George Bush tells you to do it. And so my bloodlust as a 15-year-old was totally unleashed. And I honestly, I remember it very well. I didn't give a damn about the Iraqi people at all. The human beings of Baghdad, I'd never seen one. Now, I didn't care what happened to them. But Tom, I was a 15-year-old, not only just a stupid boy, but I was a particularly horrible 15-year-old, right? And so that's what Randy Fine is. Randy Fine is the equivalent of me before I understood what it was like to have empathy with another human being, or maybe like in between times when I understood what empathy was. You know what I mean? Like, what can I say, dude? That's the worst kind of people in the world are 15-year-old boys. They don't know anything. You don't want to go along with what they want, you know?
Did you hear Netanyahu's trying to push Iran twice tried to kill Trump. Like he'll do whatever he thinks will get Trump on board. Mm-hmm. Well, what is the evidence for this? He just made this up.
Well, I'll tell you what. So let's hear the national intelligence assessment on that. Obviously, if Tulsi Gabbard had told Trump that was true, if the FBI, if Kash Patel had told Donald Trump that was true, Trump would have bombed Tehran months ago. Yeah. As soon as he came into office. It's an obvious, ridiculous hoax. I mean, I think it looks very likely that it was the nationalist right in Ukraine that put Ruth up to the second attack down there in Florida. I don't know what the hell is behind the kid here in Pennsylvania in the Northeast, but clearly Ron had nothing to do with that. And now I want to recommend to you, Tom, in fact, you should interview him about this, okay? You'll love the articles and you'll love the guy. I think you may already know the guy, Ken Silva. He's a wonderful journalist. He's from Headline USA, and he's down with us at the Institute as well. And he is just such a great investigative reporter. And he is actually writing a book for us that we're going to publish at the Institute about the assassination attempts against Trump. And he goes into everything we actually know, regardless of what all stuff is floating around, what we really, really can pin down about both attempts. But he also, Tom, has written multiple stories about these claims that Iran had hired anyone to hurt Donald Trump. And these are actually, Netanyahu, I think, was trying to say that the two attempts we know about were Iran. But the thing is, there were two other rumors of two other fake attempts against Trump that were blamed on Iran. And I wish I was really like master of the details. I think it was a Pakistani who was essentially entrapped by an FBI informant into claiming that Iran was having him, target Trump or something like that. There's two of them like that. And Ken Silva has dug deep into both of them. I was just so busy when this happened. I had to put it on the back burner, and I didn't do a deep study on it. But you can look into these claims, and they are both just absolutely false. And Trump obviously knows that, because he would have bombed them a long time ago if there was any truth to it at all. And his government, clearly the FBI and the Department of Justice, are now under control of his friends. And they would not have let him go uninformed of such a truth if it had really been real. And in fact, you might even conclude, Tom, that Kash Patel told him, "Oh, don't worry about that, sir. That was really just one of our entrapment things." You know what I mean? Because how would he explain it to him? "Hey, Kash, whatever happened to the Iran tried to kill me thing?" Nah, that was just our own guys, Mr. President. You know what I mean? Like, he had to have told him where that came from.
Hey, gang, I have a friend whose IQ, I would estimate, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 627. And he's the kind of guy you want in your corner. I'm talking about the great Matthew Sercely, a tax attorney who helps liberty-minded folks just like you keep more of your money and stay out of trouble with the IRS. And yes, I said attorney, not CPA, which means that your conversations with him are protected by attorney-client privilege. That's a big deal. Try getting that kind of protection from your accountant. Another thing about Matt, first of all, he's one of us. He's been on my cruise. He's been at one of my murder mystery parties. He's listened to the Tom Woods Show since episode 3. He's a real OG. And second, he's rather a bright fellow, as you will instantly see. And if you're running a business or even thinking about one, you need someone like Matthew in your corner. He knows how to legally reduce your tax burden, structure your business the right way, and avoid trouble while keeping every dollar you're entitled to. Go to agoristtaxadvice.com/woods. That's AGORIST taxadvice.com/woods and grab your free Agorist Tax Toolkit. It's full of powerful tools and templates you can use to get your business in order, track your expenses, and reduce how much the IRS takes from you without crossing any lines. Again, that's agoristtaxadvice.com/woods. Take the first step to keeping what's yours. All right, last thing I want to get your thoughts on before I let you go, because I know you're at PorcFest and a million people want to talk to you, is what's going on with some of these right-wing influencers. So Tucker Carlson did an interview that he released just the other night with Steve Bannon. Now, Steve Bannon is full of problems. Like none of these people are I can trust on everything. But doggone it, on the eve of all this madness, the fact that the two of them gave an interview saying that this is all crazy and inexcusable is pretty darn good.
I have that queued up. I know Tucker is absolutely fantastic on this. I'm really glad to hear that Bannon is too.
Yeah, I mean that was a very pleasant surprise. So of course Trump has then hit back at Tucker, longtime supporter, hit back at him. But I guess and then we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, look, my understanding of America First ain't this. And Tucker Carlson has been a hero. What they're trying to say, Scott, is that Tucker has always just been a, quote, grifter who just goes with the flow. But the thing is, what he's doing right now, no, hang on a second, Scott. What he's doing right now is the opposite of going with the flow. He stands to lose a huge amount of influence and possibly a chunk of his following. He could have just talked about other issues and not said anything about this. So he is showing more courage than any of them have ever had.
Absolutely agree. And look, there's just no question for anyone who knows anything about this guy. I mean, if you're as old as us anyway, he was horrible on Iraq War II. And then he went there in '04 and he saw how horrible it was. And he, I don't know exactly when he began to really speak publicly about it, but over especially the last few years, he has been fantastic on foreign policy, on opposing all of America's foreign policy. Although, even like on the Israel stuff, and this is to his credit in a sense, if you're coming at this from the right, that like 1 year ago, he interviewed Glenn Greenwald about Israeli censorship of Americans for like 3 hours. And in 3 hours, they didn't talk about what Israel was censoring Americans for talking about, which was their genocide of the poor people of Palestine. Because Tucker clearly, I don't know exactly what they had discussed, but it seemed like he was treading very carefully when it came to criticizing Israel. He says he's been there many times. He's been friends with them. He used to write for the Weekly Standard. He comes from this crew of people. A lot of them are his old friends. He has no particular need to be or reason of any kind, no interest to be sympathetic necessarily with the Palestinian side of this thing or with Iran's side of any of this. He's just really being sincere and consistent on his approach to America first. America first means enough of this. And you know what, Tom? Like, I'm sure that you've heard a lot of this stuff with all your anti-war stuff too, is you have guys who've been to the wars tell you thank you so much and how important it is to them that you say what you say about it. Well, imagine, I get a lot of that. I got some of that 10 minutes ago. Imagine what Tucker Carlson is hearing from the anti-war veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you for your service in trying to prevent the next one. I swear to you, I just heard an Iraq War II veteran talk like this to me right 6 minutes before we went on here, okay? And like, imagine Tucker Carlson stabbing them in the back. The number of guys who've said that to him this whole time. He's going to now turn on them and go back to being a hawk? There's nothing but pure sincerity here on his part. Anyone who they want to disagree with him, fine. They want to call him a hacker, a grifter, or whatever. Get out of here. That's completely ridiculous. Anyone who knows anything about the guy now knows how sincere he is about this stuff, and that he's right. This is completely crazy to do. Dave pointed out to me, and this is something that, I mentioned this about Libya, that when Obama lied us into Libya, hardly anyone even noticed or cared. He barely even tried. Compared to like the propaganda campaigns against Milosevic or Saddam Hussein, or the way that they lied and pretended that the Taliban had attacked us on September 11th instead of Al-Qaeda. I mean, like compared to Serbia or Libya, they barely even lied us into this one, right? They just launched the war and then Trump just kind of shorthands and like, well, we got to prevent them from getting a nuke. I mean, man, you think about how hard they tried for a year and a half to lie us into Iraq War II. And now they just don't even need to bother at all. They just let us know. And then shame on the people who are the Trump supporters who would rather go along with their leader than stick with what's right here. If George W. Bush told Ehud Olmert, forget about it, back in 2007, there ain't no reason in the world we got to do this now. Nothing has changed since then, other than Netanyahu knows he can get away with it because he's got Trump wrapped around his little finger, or the other way around. I always forget how that expression goes. Trump's got him wrapped around his little finger.
That's the right one. That's the right one. All right. Very quickly, I noted on Twitter the other day, Bill Kristol, who's like the classic never Trumper, has second guessed every single thing Trump has done. I mean, literally, Scott, I'm not kidding you.
I know where this is going.
Every single thing. Trump orders a civilian city of 10 million people to be evacuated. Not one word, not even mentioned.
Oh, not a congratulations, though? Oh, I thought you were going to say, Bill Kristol said, finally, Donald Trump is acting like a real president.
No, it's that he can't bring himself to say it, but he's dying to. He's dying to congratulate him, but he can't. He can't. Now,
what a world.
So Ari Fleischer, horrible neocon, is one of the ones who's accusing Tucker of being a grifter. And then Matt Gaetz jumped in and said, well, I'm glad we have Bush administration hangers on here to instruct us on how regime change wars wind up. I mean, this is at least something, that at least there's. But by
people forget. People forget Ari Fleischer. He was a very capable press secretary, and he lied us into war in Iraq as bad as any or all of them combined. Right? He was up there every single day beating that drum. He was as bad, or at least equal to, Bush, the man who pulled the trigger himself. and he'll be damned forever if there's such a thing. No question.
One thing that also makes me happy is Alex Jones is rock solid on this, saying that Trump
I don't care what he says about anything.
No, hold on a minute, Scott. It doesn't matter if you like Alex Jones. It matters that Alex Jones's opinion matters to a huge number of people. And he's saying this is a catastrophic decision by Trump that cannot be defended. So the point is the movement is definitely being divided by this. Now, the neocons are trying to downplay that, saying, oh, it's just a bunch of you influencers on Twitter, but most people love all this rah-rah stuff. I don't know if that's true or not, Scott, but I do know that there is at least something, there's at least some semblance of a group of people trying to say no.
Right. Yeah, no, it's huge. And I saw Charlie Kirk is against it. Charlie Kirk is, financed by Zionists. His group has always been very pro-Israel. And what he said was, he goes, listen, you guys know me. This is a Politico article. Did I say that? He goes, listen, you guys know me. I'm very, very pro-Israel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I got to tell you, the comments section does not agree. This is really bad. It's bad for Israel to do this. You are turning the entire young American Christian right against you, all of them. And which, I hope that that's true. And I hope people who are, especially like Baptists and Methodists from the South, who really buy into this evangelical stuff about the second coming and all this, you remember what they promised you last time was that if you support Iraq War II, you'll get raptured up to heaven and it'll be great. And it'll be, we'll force Jesus to come back. Get it? Middle East. So it's just like the Bible. And they were lying to you and they were playing you for suckers and you got left behind with the rest of us. And now here we are, and they're trying to pull the same stuff again, that this has anything to do with serving the God that created the universe. Bitch, please. Any grown man who's going to let another grown man put those non-thoughts, those absolutely preposterous and blasphemous beliefs in your head, you're absolute disgrace. Less than half a man would let his minister fill his head with such lies that the author of the Sermon on the Mount wants you to help kill these people for the secular, commie, fascist nation state of Israel that ain't got a damn thing to do with the Bible that you believe in. You've got to be kidding me. No one. And you know what? Like, I shouldn't even say it in that challenging of a way. I know you guys are with me. I know that you do remember what John Hagee promised you. I know you do remember what all the Sunday morning TV preachers said about why we have to support these wars. And none of their magical promises came through at all. So, we're right. All this is just leaders of governments committing sins. Simple as that. You want to climb on board that bandwagon? Take your risks.
Scott, what are you up to at PortFest? You have speaking things scheduled?
Yeah, well, I got all kinds of people are coming out. Al Jazeera is coming out to interview me, and Al Arabiya, which is Saudi state TV, is going to interview me today. So I'm going to have to figure out very carefully what I want to say to them. Then doing Dave Smith's show. I'm doing a speech. I'm doing some comedy. Tomorrow night, I'll be telling my Dave Smith jokes and a few others. And let's see. And then, I'm just hanging out. We're going to shoot some guns and smoke some pot and have a good time.
All right. Well, Scott, thanks. I mean, look, I know these are not ideal conditions and, you have a million things to do. But I really appreciate you making the time for us today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Libertarianinstitute.org. Go support Scott Horton. He's doing all this for you and me. Libertarianinstitute.org. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Make yourself and those you love less vulnerable to the regime, both mentally and physically. Get more forbidden information at tomsfreebooks.com and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. See you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.